Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. Y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz. Joining me in Sacramento, Aaron Schroeder.
Good to see you guys. Thanks for having
And,
me.
and join us in New Zealand, Dylan Williamson.
Good morning, guys. How's it going?
Good. And join us from an undisclosed parked car in witness protection, Pablo Escoball.
Hello, everybody. This is my podcast debut. That's why I am all the way down in the bottom of my frame. I can't. Well, it'll be good. Well, just all right.
You know that guy on TikTok that like finds people? You know, like they'll say, "Hey, come find me." Like Jose
Do
Lopez.
not-
guy.
Oh God! Don't
Yeah.
comment on his video saying "find this parked car." Is that how much identifying info is there? Oh no!
He's gonna find you.
That's
Oh,
a very
my-
specific type of tree that grows in one region.
No!
For me, not enough. For him, he's already found you.
and he
He's
found
found
your
me.
Amish girlfriend too.
Real ones know.
All right. Well, Pablo has come out of hiding. He's been searched for, the FBI is searching for him, trying to figure out how he knows all of his good draft takes, tipping them before Woj. That's really how Woj gets his information is from Pablo here. So we've had
He's
the
kind of
NBA
a casual.
draft. Yeah, I mean he's just a guy that knows people, right? Like,
Mhm.
does he really have takes?
No, he's a reporter. He's the best
That's a
reporter.
good point, actually. He doesn't
Yeah.
actually have takes. He just kind of does. He
That's
really? know
that's a hot
basketball?
take. Woj is a casual.
Wait, have we
Biggest-
seen anything
biggest
to
hot
prove
take.
that Woj isn't a casual?
Do you listen to his podcast ever?
Yeah.
It's pretty like when he gives like he's not like keeping up with he's not watching Thinking Basketball. I'll tell you that much. He's just like an information guy, but he is the best information guy.
He is. He's
Yeah.
super well connected. Him and
Yeah.
Shams, although they're kind of getting a little bit of like, hey, we're gonna plug your thing now, so
Yeah.
you give us information. You see that on some of the tweets, and you're like, that was oddly high praise for someone that didn't deserve it, but okay.
Yeah, Shams, he saw that sports gambling money, and he's like, I got to get this involved in my
Oh,
news
no.
breaking. He's like, the Jordan Clarkson extension brought to you by FanDuel and whatever else he's got going on.
Well, so you had your big board, and you had some interesting takes on it. But let's just start off. Can you give us like a minute on Wemby? What is your Wemby analysis? Why do you love him? As someone who did not watch him play much in France, like, is the hype real?
It's so number one, I feel like the shooting hype, well, how do I explain this? So he played one game in the US, right? And it was that Vegas game against the G League Ignite, and that was his best 3-point shooting game ever, right? He was like insane, like 7 of 10 or something like that, shooting pull-up threes, like all these insane threes. And he was doing all the defensive stuff he does regularly. So that was like the best Wemby game possible. And so I think everybody in the US saw that game. They're like, this is the greatest prospect ever. And then, but as the season went on, I think it's come to a point where Wemby has the highest ceiling ever for a prospect, or arguably the highest ceiling, but he's not the best. How old is he? 18 or 19? He's not the best 19-year-old basketball player ever, but he is one of the best 19-year-old best basketball players ever. So, but yeah, I had him easy number one. Like he's number one in majority of drafts in the NBA. The defense is first, like insane rim protection potential just by virtue of being the biggest guy out there with the longest arms ever, the biggest hands ever. And then on top of it, he's super smart. He can read everything and he moves so well. So it's like, I'm expecting like an Evan Mobley type emergence early on as a defensive prospect. And then offensively, it's still more of a work in progress than I think people think, but the sky is the limit there. Cause it's like, the shooting numbers are not great right now, but there's obvious shooting. Like the guy has insane touch, so I'm pretty confident that he'll figure out the shot, and then he can get points in all the easy ways, like just dunker spot, just roll man, just like random offensive putback cleanup type stuff, and then the ball handling is still like, yeah, the ball handling is still a work in progress. So I don't
I
fully
really like the
expect
ball
him to
handling.
be. Yeah, I feel like it's really impressive how low he gets and stuff, but
Mhm.
I think he's still very bothered by like help defense, by like digs on his drives and stuff like that. And so I wouldn't expect that to be there early on, but the fact that it's at this level for a 19-year-old 7'5" guy, like it's going to be unreal. So yeah, this guy, I think he'll be a fantastic defensive player, like no matter what. And then the offensive ceiling is like good for sure, could be all-time great. So yeah, he's just like perfect number one pick.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, I mean, I really liked what I saw from him in summer league. The little bit that I got to watch, the passing. That's what really surprised me. Because you
Mhm.
always hear about the defense and the ball handling, the shooting, but like his playmaking, his passing was better than I was expecting. But
Yeah, he's pretty good. I think he was rougher earlier on at the beginning of his season, but he got better as time went on. And when I think about his passing, like we talk about passing over the top of defenses, like Magic Johnson could pass over the top of defenses. Like I was thinking, if Wemby just holds the ball up with one hand, he can literally pass over the top of any defense in NBA history. It'll be like the ball is just 10 feet up there and he could just look over everybody and see everything happening. So he's got, yeah, he'll be insane. Obviously, he'll be attracting a lot of defensive attention, and he'll be able to punish that in time, hopefully.
When you think of 7'5" guys, he just has unreal touch. Because
Yeah.
previously, if you're 7'5", you're like Sean Bradley. You're kind of gangly and you run around like a baby giraffe. And like Yao Ming had great touch, but he was like an oak tree. He was like a completely different build that we'll probably never see again. But that's really what got me with Wemby is just the feel for the game. Like the defensive rotations are just awesome and perfect. And even that play that he got dunked on, he contested that dunk like no one else ever could. Because the average person just watches it like fly over their head, or the average NBA center just watches it fly over their head. And the fact that he was even in a place to like kind of almost block it made the poster so great. But honestly, I watched that. I was like, that's crazy that he even was in the picture.
Yeah, and like the three of us didn't really watch a lot of Metropolitans '92 basketball, but from our initial summer league takes, I think we all had the same conclusion pretty much as you, that like the offense may be a work in progress that might take a little while to come along, but the defense looks, really good, like it's going to be impactful right away. With that in mind, if we're looking at the number 2 pick, where there's a guy who I think the offense is already coming around, and then we get into that great Kevin Durant debate of, in modern NBA, is it actually offense that's more important? Like, was there ever a thought in your mind before the draft, or even now, that maybe Scoot is the better take based on that idea that the offense from Wemby is maybe a lower floor, whereas for Scoot, it looks like more of a sure thing?
Yeah, so for Scoot, he was never in Wemby conversations for me. It was always for me, I was weighing in my head like for the entire year, I was weighing Scoot versus Amen Thompson because I think they're both like the same archetype of player essentially, like huge, like insane athlete, huge rim pressure type guys, very good passers, but there's jump shot questions. The Amen Thompson jump shot questions are much bigger. But like essentially these guys are going to function in a very similar way on the court, but Amen Thompson is bigger. And so I was constantly comparing those two, but for Scoot versus Wemby, I think I think even the offensive ceiling is greater for Victor just because he's so big. And for Scoot, as good as he is, and as big as he is for his size, because he has like a 6'9" wingspan and like completely gigantic hands and everything, so he'll be playing bigger than he is. Um, he it's just good. It would be incredibly hard for him to have the offensive value to match what Victor has the potential to bring on offense and defense. And then also there's the matter of
Whoops.
oh oh hello, did that mess that up? Somebody called me.
No, you're
Um
good. You blinked out for a second. Your
oh,
camera's off.
oh my god, bro. Oh, all right, we're back.
Hey,
I got
welcome back.
I got 2 calls in a row from a California number. I don't live in California. A stranger, they heard I was doing the podcast and they're coming after me.
That GeoGuessr guy just took that hit.
Oh
He's not in California.
no!
He's figuring it out. He's
Oh
weeding
my!
it down.
I need to give less info.
This scoot thing is so interesting because with the 3-point shooting moving forward and the league taking 3 after 3 after 3, to have Scoot and the Thompson twins be pretty terrible shooters is really interesting. But I wanted to know because one of the best shooters in the entire draft is Brandon Miller. He moves off ball awesome and he has a high ceiling for scoring potential. But you had him, Pablo, you had him 5th on your big board, which is much lower than I'd ever seen anyone. Why so low for someone with an offensive ceiling like that?
Hold on one second. This number is calling me like nonstop. Let me just hide alerts from this. Yeah.
It's the GeoGuessr guy. He's gonna ask you where you are.
No,
Okay.
it's him saying I've found you. I've already got it.
Is this the right number? Yep, got you.
All right. So I'm sorry. What was the question?
Brandon Miller being such an offensive prospect with his 3-point shooting and ball movement and all of that, you had him 5th on your big board, which is so much lower than I've seen from almost anyone else. What's the negative on Miller, and why didn't you like him as much?
Yeah, so this was a big time split between draft Twitter and like the mainstream draft world. Are you guys on draft Twitter at all, or do you know about draft Twitter?
I gotta find a way to get on there.
Oh man,
Is there like a dark web thing, or
I have a pinned video on my account, like a bunch of accounts to follow, but basically it's just like all these random dudes who what's it called? Who they do this draft stuff for fun. Like they're not paid to do anything, but they watch film for like 14 hours a day. They're like far more psychotic about it than me or anything like that. And a bunch of them have gotten hired to NBA teams. They've like completely changed how you think about draft stuff. But anyway, on draft Twitter, he's like a lot of people are lower on him than I am. I'm kind of like in the middle. But so essentially the thing is, people see him, they say Paul George, right? They're like, this guy could be Paul George. But the big reason why he's not Paul George is because he's actually not a fantastic athlete. Like, he doesn't have a lot of burst off the dribble. It's kind of tough for him to create looks for himself at the rim. So you got to wonder, is this guy just, he's a fantastic shooter and he's a big shooter, but how high is the offensive ceiling for somebody who won't be able to get to the rim? And so that's kind of the question you got to ask is that something that you can grow? Like Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer, he thinks that he can improve the finishing if he puts on more muscle, but then other people are like, it doesn't matter. He doesn't have the burst for it. So that's kind of that's the issue with him, is just the rim finishing game. Is that a hole? And if that is a big hole, is that something you could fill in? And so for me, there were just other guys. I'm not necessarily counting on his ceiling. I'm just like, I really like the potential of a movement shooter who can run some pick and rolls and who can be a solid defensive player. But I'm not counting on him becoming the next Paul George or anything. So
that's really what I found. Go ahead, Don.
Sorry. You hit on a good point there in regards to finishing, where it's not only a matter of you've got to be able to finish your layups, but you do also have to create an advantage off the dribble in order to get to the rim and to even apply rim pressure. And with regards to the Paul George comparison, maybe it is more apt if you make the clarification that we're not talking Indiana Paul George, which a lot of people assume because we're thinking young Paul George, but current Paul George, Clippers Paul George in his 30s, is a guy that scores a lot by just creating jump shots, is not a guy that really applies a lot of rim pressure. So I feel like if we're talking Paul George comparisons, then maybe it's more accurate if we say it's late career Paul George, it's Clippers Paul George, where he's getting mostly to the mid-range, he's shooting threes, and he's not applying a lot of rim pressure.
There's a good There's a good comparison. Paul George, after 3 devastating knee injuries, equals Brandon Miller. When I was looking into him, that's kind of what I found for his weaknesses. Is he's not a fantastic athlete, and he's already 21, which is quite a bit older
Yeah.
than those one and done guys. So it's not like he's Tatum coming in at 18 or something. I get it. Do you think that the Brandon Miller pick at 2 for the Hornets is like doomsday, the end of the world, or is it salvageable?
I think there's a good chance that he's a good player. Like he could even be a really good player, but it's just I just really would have rather taken Scoot. I just feel like
Yeah.
when you're the Hornets, you gotta take the swings on the guys who could be game changing. And you have LaMelo, who's like he looks like he could be a franchise player, but in terms of fit, it's like LaMelo's not a fantastic rim pressure guy himself, and so I just think it would have been way cooler to see him and Scoot, because another thing about Scoot is I think he's really good off the ball. Like I think he moves off the ball, and he's a fantastic cutter. And out of that, he can make really good passes. And then I also think like LaMelo's a really good off the ball player. And so if Scoot is like a crazy rim pressure guy and he gets defenses scrambling and then he just kicks it to LaMelo obliterates scrambling defenses. So I think he could make LaMelo's job a whole lot easier. So I really liked the potential synergy with that. With Brandon Miller and LaMelo, it just feels like these are 2 good guys, but I don't know if Brandon Miller necessarily enhances LaMelo's potential. You know what I mean?
I was all in on Scoot Henderson, and I think it all clicked in my head. Although, honestly, before the draft, I had said things like, just without really diving deep into these prospects, the concept of what Brandon Miller could be as like a high-level scorer was more appealing than this super athletic point guard. But when I was watching the draft, and I know what Scoot Henderson looks like, but when they were panning around to like show all the guys who were in attendance, and they showed Henderson, they showed this guy with his hands around a basketball and his like fingertips are touching, and my brain is like, that's a 7'2" guy. And then they're like Scoot Henderson, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Scoot Henderson. Like, oh my god, like my brain short circuited because his hands are so big. And I feel like I'd be an awful GM because I'm like getting hyped up by hand size, but he has these like 12-inch hands. He's like 6'2".
Yeah, it's like it's so hard to be a smaller guy in the NBA, and people always say like 6'3" guys and under, they don't win championships. It's like only Steph, and he's the best shooter ever. But we did have Dwayne Wade back in 05 or 06 or whatever that is. But it's like,
Whoa,
why was
6'4"?
Dwayne Wade?
There's a difference. I mean,
There is, but
that extra inch counts for something, right?
But he also, Dwayne Wade is like the wingspan and
Mm-hmm.
how he played. Like he's essentially functioning as like a gigantic six whatever guy, just bashing into the rim
Mm-hmm.
over and over. And so he functioned bigger than his size. And so there's definitely potential for Scoot to be like that. And so if you're gambling on a pretty small guy, you want to gamble on the small guy who's got gigantic long arms, gigantic hands, and is like a freak athlete and could like jump to even the playing field.
Dwayne Wade comparisons are interesting because I see hyper athletic guards like him, and I go to like Derrick Rose, I go to Ja Morant, and go to Westbrook. A lot of guys who like have a huge amount of athleticism built around their game, which I guess Wade did too. But what do you think about his game and potential to expand it beyond just being an athletic powerhouse? It was like, do you think he's going to have the skill of a Steph Curry or a Chris Paul, or is he going to get kind of slotted into that hyper athletic guard mode?
So he hit the mid-range shooting numbers were very, very good for Scoot. And it's so that's a positive and a negative, because I think he kind of took too many mid-range jumpers. Probably he should be somebody who's like living at the line more and attacking the rim more. But the finishing numbers being so good is great, not necessarily because you want him to be like a guy who's living in the mid-range, but that bodes really well for developing your three-pointer. Like if a guy could shoot mid-range, probably can figure it out from 3. And then if he ever got to a point where he's hitting pull-up threes, and if he gets to like the Donovan Mitchell level as a pull-up shooter, it's like, what do you even do? Because you have to chase over screens, and then he didn't even need that edge to get downhill, but now you give it to him, and then he gets downhill. So it's like it just becomes incredibly hard to guard. And so I think what separates Scoot, I think, is a better passer than guys like Rose and Westbrook were coming in, and I feel like he's a lot less ball dominant. Like I really like how he moves on and off the ball, and so yeah, the passing is already there. It's already at a very high level. There's a lot of shooting optimism. So there's potential for him to be a pretty versatile, like hyper athletic guard. And defensive potential is there, but he just doesn't not fully engaged. But when you have those arms and those hands, it's there.
Fair enough. Well, all right. So I think that expands, or that's most of our knowledge on the draft is those big three guys. We're not draft experts. So I wanted to ask you, one, how many players from this draft do you think will eventually make an all-star team?
Oh, I really couldn't give you like a concrete number because honestly, I don't even. How many players from any draft make an all-star? Do we have any?
Seven?
About
Aaron,
seven?
didn't you do this research at one point?
I think I did. Let me see if I can find it.
I'm pretty sure it's like 7.5 is like the line in for drafts because you get a lot of those guys who just like pop up and they have the one-time all-stars.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely more in earlier drafts. One, because those drafts went like 8 rounds. Those are however many rounds
Yeah.
old drafts used to go. 2, Aaron, you got the number?
Yeah, it's as of 2015 back. I picked 2015, so they played like enough time to not skew the numbers recently. It was 6 per draft.
It's one off.
6? Okay,
Yeah,
that's
6
interesting.
all-stars and 2.5 Hall of Famers.
So I feel like Wemby is like as safe a bet to be an all-star as you're going to get. I feel like Scoot is a relatively safe bet to become an all-star, and then once you get beyond that, there's a lot of guys who for sure have the potential to be, but I'm just not. I don't have like a confidence meter to like stick it on them. Like Amen Thompson has all-star level talent. Like he could be an all NBA talent, he could be a Hall of Fame talent, but it's like the jumper doesn't exist at all right now. So how confident, if it never comes around, am I confident he could become an all-star? And then, yeah, like you said, like a lot of weird guys can make all-star game. Like sometimes you could just be like a really, really successful role player. And so like if the Hornets end up having like a number 1 seed season in the East and Brandon Miller is just like a really good 3-and-D guy in the East where like the wing talent is weak one year and he gets an all-star based off that is possible. But yeah, I really don't know how many all-stars would come from this class, but this is considered, a lot of people really like this class. People consider this one of the stronger classes. Since I've been doing it since 2018 is the best one. This is like 2021 level to me. I think I probably liked 2021 more than this, but this is a really good draft.
Fair enough. If you had to pick 4 other all-stars, say you're getting Scoot, you're getting Wemby, who are your next 4?
All right, 4. So I'll give you. All right, these will be 100% guarantees. So
Locking them in.
Lock them in. Bryce Sensabaugh, of course. Ice Bryce, the immortal Ice Bryce. We'll go Amen Thompson. We'll go Asar Thompson. The Thompson twins. They'll be. Oh, what if they're? Wait, are they? Yeah, they're East-West. Oh my God, that'd be crazy. Them guarding each other in an All-Star game, and then let's go Taylor Hendricks. Let's go double Utah Jazz 2023 draft picks in the All-Star game because Danny Ainge is a demon and things always work out for him.
I had to ask you about Hendricks because he ended up going 9th and you had him all the way up at 4. What's a modern day comp or a player right now you see him comparing to?
Yeah, so he's like quintessential like modern NBA draft pick, like 6'9" or 6'10", like 7'2" wingspan or whatever. He is kind of like a big wing, like a gigantic wing who can also protect the rim. And so he is one of these guys who is in that new mold of like roamers. Like you have some other center who's focused on like guarding the other center and who the other post guy, and then you just stick this roamer on whoever the worst offensive player in the other team is, and you just let him run around and wreck like what they did with Anthony Davis in the playoffs this year against the Nuggets. Like they just had him off ball roaming. And so Taylor Hendricks is that kind of guy. He's like super versatile, can switch out onto the perimeter and hold up very well. And then just fantastic rim protector, but it's more so of secondary rim protection, like rotation, weak side stuff, rather than just like you park him in drop coverage and he just swats everything that comes to the rim. Because there could be some science concerns with that, but he's just like perfect 4-man in the NBA, 5 in some lineups, and then on top of that, he spaces the floor very, very well, like 38% or 39% 3-point shooter on like good volume and legit. And then there are people who I think he like was more involved. I could be getting this wrong. I'm not a big high school basketball guy, but there are people who I think say he has even more untapped offensive potential because of stuff that he showed in high school that he didn't get to show in his 1 year at college. And so think of him in the mold of like a Jaren Jackson type-ish player.
It's a good type of player to have. Like that is the kind of the future of the NBA is you have a big center that protects the rim, maybe stands there. They've got Kessler Walker.
Yeah.
I will never get that right. I will never know what his name is. But it's, if you got him roaming around and you got Lauri Markkanen, that is an imposing front line physically, and like a lot of length, a lot of rim protection there.
Yeah, him and Walker Kessler, like as soon as he got drafted there, I was like, oh my God, this could be a meta changing front court. This is going to be an unreal pairing.
They could be good pretty quickly with the Markkanen piece. Markkanen's just really such a special offensive talent while not sacrificing any sort of physical tools at all, given that he's like 7 feet tall, and with Kessler and Walker, I mean, that's a pretty exciting team. Not just like a league pass team, but like a playoff team, play-in team, better than the Rockets team. It's
playoff in the East, play in the West.
Yeah, there you go.
We have a little bit of West Coast bias here. I'm a Lakers fan. Aaron's a Kings person, and then Dylan's a Clippers fan.
I'm not a fan.
So.
I'm just a Kings person.
But you
transcend fandom.
Yeah,
you're not just a fan.
Hyper obsessive.
Yeah.
You have to be like a martyr, willing to go through a lot of pain and suffering to be a Kings person.
Less so a fan, more just like an entity that floats around, rooting for the Kings.
Yeah, I'm a Bulls fan, so it's kind of like being a Kings fan, just with like momentary interruptions. Like, whoa, did we get the youngest MVP ever? Nope, it's gone. You're back to being the Kings. So
I never get that kind of hope, and that never flashes in the pan so bright. But
I saw you do a TikTok the other day. Are you pro retiring Rose's jersey or anti?
I am pro. Yeah, because I grew up like. Yeah, I was at the right age where it's like my life revolved entirely around Derrick Rose at one point. And so for me, I think he should be retired because and I think most Bulls fans do. I'm not super rigid, like he didn't bring us a championship. Get him out of the rafters. For me, I think MVP is rare enough to get your number retired. Plus, I don't want to see anyone in number 1 because even if we got Ja and he wore number 1, it would look cool, but it wouldn't look as cool.
Yeah, I kind of do your own thing. Like it just doesn't feel right having another player in someone else's number. And like, what if the other player ends up being good, and then you have this Jokic Carmelo Anthony thing? Like,
I mean, that's crazy that they ended up having the same number.
Yeah, I mean, Clippers got KJ Martin, who's wearing number 6 this year. Which no one has worn since DeAndre Jordan left. And like as a big fan of that Lob City era, it does look weird that like and we're not talking like an MVP, we're talking DeAndre Jordan, but even that number 6 jersey like coming out of unofficial retirement. All NBA first team DeAndre Jordan.
That's
even
one of the 5
weird.
best players in the league by all NBA measurements. Wow.
Wait, how is he wearing number 6? Number 6 is retired league wide. For
is
Bill
he still
Russell.
wearing? Yeah, is he still wearing 6?
Did that happen?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did. They did do that. That's right.
Oh, is that why LeBron's changing his number?
I
Or wait,
mean,
or no,
LeBron,
was he?
LeBron operates in a different
yeah.
universe. He's
They,
not
they had said that
dictate
you
this
could
shit.
keep 6 if you already had it, which maybe that's how he's getting past, is that he was already wearing it, just with a
Of
different
all
team.
people,
Yeah,
fucking Kenyon
that-
Martin Jr. Just like, yeah, I'll
That-
keep it.
Maybe that's it because he wore it on Houston, so they let him keep it. But
Was his dad a number 6?
I'm so bad with numbers. I couldn't tell you
Yeah.
any number that anyone wore.
Yeah, that should be the next evolution of Hoops Grid. Is just like number and teams, and you got to try to find the most obscure number 6 for the Nets or something.
Number 4
Yeah,
for Martin. No, Kenny Martin was 6 in New Jersey.
yeah,
Oh.
he wore number 2 for the Clippers, which would have made more sense.
Interesting. He was 4. He was 4 in Cincinnati and 4 in Denver. He was 3 in New York and then 6 in New Jersey. Huh. The more you know.
well, Paulo, how did you feel about the Bulls draft?
It was just like it felt it was just bizarre. Like they only had a second round pick, and then or no, they didn't have any picks, but they buy into the second round later, and then they take Julian Phillips, who it's a fine second round gamble. He's just like a big athletic wing, can't really do a lot else. He got to the line at a really good rate. But then it's like, why did we do this? And then you figure out they didn't re-sign Derrick Jones Jr. and they're kind of counting on this guy to be the Derrick Jones Jr. replacement. And it's like, what level of team do you think we're at where we operate making moves like, oh no, we lost Derrick Jones Jr. We got to find his replacement in the draft? Is like the guy, the franchise player is not on the roster. You guys you got the wrong goals here. So I think it's fine, but it won't move the needle. Like we're just mid. We're just permanently mid, stuck in purgatory. So,
Oh, where you guys will blow it up eventually.
My grandma's a Bulls fan. We mention her often on this pod, and I text her occasionally about Bulls stuff. And I would text her about the moves that would happen. I think it was Andre Drummond when you guys re-signed Drummond. I said, "What did you like about Andre Drummond?" She said, "I don't remember." That's like, this feels like that's the summary of what the Bulls have been up to. Is just kind of like non-memorable moves and keeping a core together for too long. And
I've been doing a TikTok series, kind of just reliving old trades for superstars, because like the value of what superstars used to get traded for is just so wildly different than what it is now. And so I did Shaq's, and so I was like, well, Shaq was old when the Lakers traded him away. Like that's why the value was depressed. I'm like, all right, well, let's look at Tracy McGrady, who is coming off of multiple top 5 MVP finishes, 2 All NBA first teams, 2 All NBA second teams. He's 24. That's basically Jason Tatum. And let's look at what he gets traded for. And I compared it to a Chicago Bulls package of Zach LaVine, Vucevic, and Drummond. But you also, because the Magic decided to give up more, you get back Jason Tatum, Al Horford, and Peyton Pritchard. How fast are you saying yes to that offer?
Wait, so I would trade Zach LaVine and Vucevic for Tatum?
Tatum, Horford, and
that
Pritchard.
sounds like a good deal.
Oh my god, that would change my entire life. The Vucevic trade is the worst thing that's ever. Actually, it's the second worst thing that's ever happened to me. The first worst thing is Derrick Rose tearing his ACL. The second worst thing to ever happen to me is the Vucevic trade. I've had an extraordinarily easy life, but it's this. Oh my god, what? How we traded is what did they trade? What was the Drew Holiday trade?
Like 3 firsts for Drew?
And Nerlens Noel, is that the one we're talking about? The Sixers
Yeah.
one or the Bucks?
The Bucks one.
Yeah, I think it was 3 firsts and Dante DiVincenzo.
We gave a Wendell Carter who is younger, cheaper, and better than Vucevic. We gave up 2 first-round picks, and what's it called? We took back bad salary, right, Aminu? But yeah, anyway, that trade is just a disaster. If we didn't make that trade, I feel like if we didn't make that trade, we would have ended up with Damian Lillard because we would have had all our picks to throw at Portland, and then we would have had like young players, like even if they're not like actual good players, just young names to throw at Portland, so they could say, "Oh, we got
Yeah.
Kobe White back, we got
And-
Patrick Williams back."
Patrick Williams is like the guy that perpetually his value is just going to be way higher than his skill level. Like he's still like, he's like a fringe starter and he's like untouchable to like NBA GMs.
Yeah, he is like basically the entire hope of our franchise rests on him becoming Kawhi Leonard. If he becomes Kawhi Leonard, everything will work out. But if he stays where he is right now, which is, I don't know, like it's okay. It's like low volume, 40% 3-point shooter, very good defender. But yeah, we keep getting guys who it's like, oh, this guy could be the fourth best player on a championship team. This guy could be a really good third man off the bench, but we don't have the guy. They're not interested in getting the guy. I don't know.
I like some of the pieces. I still like Levine and I like DeRozan, but all like on their own, which goes to what you're saying. But about the Vucevic trade, really just talking about the Magic. The Magic in the draft had kind of they were the most panned draft in the mainstream with the Anthony Black and Jet Howard picks. At least that's what I was able to find. Did you think that draft was as bad as everyone else did on ESPN and whatnot?
So that one I know they got criticized. That one didn't stick out as being like horrific for me, but so Anthony Black, it's just a tough fit for him with Orlando because Anthony Black is essentially like a Lonzo Ball type player. Like he can't shoot at all, or not at all. Well, he can't shoot very good.
Shooting.
He's like,
you don't need it.
He's a jumbo point guard who's like very, very good defensively and
You could
very
say
smart.
Almost like a Markel Fultz kind of Jalen Suggs kind of player.
He's
like the
like the guys they have.
Because those guys, I wanted them to be so much more, but unfortunately, he's a very, very good passer, but he's not an advantage creator. Like he can't really score, so he needs other people to create the advantages for him. And then, so when you look at him with that Orlando roster, like you said, where you're like, oh, he's with Suggs and Fultz who can't shoot. Paolo's not a great shooter. Franz is okay at shooting. It's like the court is going to be very cramped. And so he's just not the great. I think he's a really good prospect. I think he's a really good player, but he's not the greatest fit for them. Jet Howard, I think, is fine. He's just like a jumbo shooter, like 6'9", some untapped shot creating potential. Like there's some people smarter than me who think like he could be like a really legit offensive player, but I think he's a safe bet just to be just 6'9" movement shooter guy, and that's cool. That's something they could use.
I like Black in terms of the passing, having a really awesome passer with a young team can kind of open it up offensively, especially since Paolo had so much offensive responsibility last year. You saw him really struggle efficiency-wise because he was a rookie, and they're like, hey, man, like, we really need you to score all these points. And he's like, I am 19 years old. Please stop asking me to do these things. I don't know if the Magic are ready to take that leap into playoff land. It seems like they're gearing up to do so. I wonder if the Jet Howard pick, they obviously had this planned, but to have someone who can't shoot at all and then someone who can only shoot, it seems like that's what they had in mind.
That's possible. Honestly, I think people overestimate how these NBA decision makers are thinking. Like, I think it could be literally that simple. Like, this guy is good, but he can't shoot. We'll just get the shooter guy. So now it's like there's no weaknesses with these two picks. It's like, okay.
You tape them together with duct tape around the waist and have them walk around with each other.
Or like the greatest, like, oh wait, maybe he'll teach him how to shoot. Like, you know how like like if anybody gets the Pistons trade for Wiseman, like the YouTube comments will be like, wait, if they just signed Hakeem to teach him his post moves, this could be great. Or it's like, if the Hawks just signed Steve Nash and he taught him how to be the best decision maker ever, this would be great.
I think Aaron still just has flashbacks of the Kings and some of Vecron and Dive being like, we need shooting. Let's get Stauskas. Stauskas?
Oh, man. Yeah. He's big like Clay, but he shoots like Curry.
He wasn't even that big. He's not that tall, and he's not that strong. He's really flimsy. That was a disaster. It's the Stauskas Macklemore back-to-back drafts like ended my hope for a good basketball team for a long time. Like that put a dagger in it. It's like, okay, like we actually aren't ever gonna be good because we keep doing this.
Yeah, Macklemore's so interesting. I think about guys like, obviously that's before I was doing the draft thing. I always think about like, would I have been high on Ben McLemore? I feel like I probably would have, because I'd be like,
I
well, this
was.
guy's a
I
big
was.
time shooter, and he's
Yeah.
also like a nuclear athlete. Surely this has to work out. And it did for a little bit in Houston, right?
I mean, the Houston teams were terrible, and he kind of got to make all the mistakes he wanted, but he had a beautiful shot, and he was a crazy athlete. But I think when I think of Ben McLemore, I think of him like missing 360 dunks in transition.
Hey,
That
someone's
just
got to
like
try
sums
him
it up.
though.
Someone's got to try him, and he was out there like spinning around and missing them, and it's like, dude, like I feel like he had all the tools and the athleticism and the shot, and like he had like the body of Michael Jordan, but the IQ of like Kelly Oubre, and it
Oh,
just like didn't work out.
you had me excited there. I was like, wait, maybe this guy could work.
Yeah.
Well, I had this thought because a lot of these guys we're discussing, kind of looking at what they were pre-draft and talking about them, but I want to know who you didn't like coming into the draft, but then when they got selected to a certain team, you're like, oh, that fit really works, and I kind of like them now more.
Oh, that's very interesting. Here, could you run? Do you have the list of who was drafted? Could you run through it for me?
I can read the actual draft.
I did the same thing to Aaron the other day. We were working our top 200, and I was like, "Hey, Aaron, can you just read 1 through 175 for me real quick, just so we know where we're at?"
Which NBA players are best? Wait, could you tell me who the NBA players are?
just all 5,000 something.
All right, I have it pulled up. So Wembanyama to the Spurs, Brandon Miller to the Hornets, Scoot Henderson to the Blazers, Amen Thompson to the Rockets, Asar Thompson to the Pistons, Anthony Black to the Magic. The French guy whose name I cannot pronounce to the Wizards. They are
Oh, Koulibaly.
Yeah, he was just a note on that really quickly on your own big board. You had him pretty low.
Yeah, I was much lower than consensus.
23rd, and I mean the Washington went with the upside, given that they're going to be terrible. But some of these guys may have gotten traded. I'm trying my best to organize this. Taylor Hendricks to Utah. Carson Wallace was drafted by Dallas. I think he ended up going to Oklahoma City. And then Jet Howard to Orlando, Derek Lively to Dallas, Grady Dick to Toronto, Jordan Hawkins to the Pelicans, Kobe Buffkin to Atlanta, Keontae George to Utah, Jalen Hood-Schifino to the Lakers, Jaime Jaquez Jr. to Miami. Love that name. I saw him live at March Madness.
You know what? It's probably him because so I'm lower on him than I think a lot of people. Like a lot of very smart basketball people like him. Like Adam Spinella really likes him. J. Kyle Mann from The Ringer I think really liked him. And so I was kind of in the camp where I'm like, I feel like he's probably a little bit too physically limited to be the same type of guy that he was at UCLA. But once he got drafted to Miami, I'm like, oh, this could be interesting because things just seem to work out for people. Oh, I just spit. My bad. Things seem to work out for guys who go to Miami. Like if he passes their conditioning test, he gets into peak shape. And he's kind of this is like caveman brain talking about basketball, but it's like he's kind of Jimmy Butler-ish because he wins in unorthodox ways, like just using his size and like pump faking and stuff like that. And he's just very smart. And so when he got drafted to Miami, I was like, okay, I buy into this a lot more than if he went to Washington or whatever.
Are you trying to say Washington doesn't develop players into winners?
Our nation's capital, man. Yeah, and I'll tell you, the reason I'm lower on Koulibaly is just he's a very raw project, and I feel like he's big time defensive potential. Like people say, physically he moves, and he's like the same size as Scottie Pippen, and he's already pretty good defensively. But he's just a guy who I think everything on offense comes from like it's just like straight line drives and like very just set up. Like I just feel like there's a dynamic element missing, and so maybe he develops and he like just takes some insane leap, but it would take a big time skill development type leap. Like it would take like, in my eyes, it would take like Kawhi, like Blake Griffin to the Pistons, like that kind of level of development. And so I'm just less comfortable betting on that than I am betting on somebody like I have Bryce Sensabaugh way higher than everybody, and it's because I just think he has like these rare shot creation type skills right now.
Wait, did you say Blake Griffin to the Pistons?
Like his skill development, right? Like when he came into the league, he's just a dunker, right?
Yeah. His moments. He started shooting more in Detroit, and they kind of didn't have much else. So like, here you go. Like, please help us out.
I think of that as like the like skill development. Of like this is when Blake falls apart because I remember Point Blake in the Clippers. Yeah, I mean the health.
No, that as the resident Blake Griffin fan, I get what you mean. Like on the Clippers, the athleticism was really high, and that started to decline, and the skill went up. And the Pistons Blake Griffin is kind of like that last point where the athleticism is like still barely there, but the skill is at an all-time high. You know, he's basically running things as a point guard at times. He's running pick and rolls as the ball handler. His shooting is the best that it's been. So I get what you mean by the Blake Griffin development.
Yeah, he's like he wasn't taking like pull up threes on the later Clipper years are murky, so I could be totally wrong. But was he taking like pull up threes with the Clippers?
Not as much.
Not as much.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. I went to some of those Pistons games.
On the Jaime Jaquez thing, I saw him in March Madness, and I didn't know anything about the draft going in. I wish I remember who they were playing, but I kind of picked on what you were saying about he wins in unorthodox ways because when he got drafted, or I saw him on big boards, I was like, I saw that guy, and I thought he's not athletic enough to be in the NBA. This is like one of like the super college players that is gonna make that jump, but he's more athletic than I thought. But it was like kind of like high post ups and like making the right passes, and he just kind of appeared in the right spot magically, and I'm like, hey, like that guy's making a really big impact.
Yeah, that's exactly him. Like, yeah, a lot of post up stuff, but just it's like this guy knows ball.
I know. I don't trust double J names from UCLA. After Johnny Juzang, I was just like, feels suspicious.
Yeah, I think he's much more real than Johnny Juzang, because Johnny Juzang is like, okay, he's Kobe, but just like a lot worse but he does all the same Kobe stuff.
Speaking of Kobe, but a lot worse, do you have any Emoni Bates stock? Any Emoni Bates stock left?
All right, so here, oh my God, I gotta cover my face. I got the sun on me. So Emoni Bates, I'm an optimist I think if he rebranded himself as a shooter. So basically, he is like this super duper talented 3-point shot maker, because he's like lived his entire life taking these insanely difficult shots. And so he can hit them off movement and stuff like that. But the problem is when you put the ball in his hands, he's like, I am going to take the toughest shot humanly possible because I am the greatest basketball player on earth. And so that's a problem, but I do love the confidence. And so I think if he just rebranded, and he's also horrific defensively, but if he just rebranded himself to be like Duncan Robinson and just like any type of movement shooter, I think he could have a spot in the NBA. It just comes down to, is he going to buy into it after like living his entire life to this point, being told by his parents and by everybody else, like, no, you're Kevin Durant. The only reason you're not Kevin Durant right now is because you didn't get a chance to be. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm an Emoni Bates optimist. I wouldn't put any money down to say that he'll be like stick in the NBA for 5 years. But I'm hopeful.
It's an interesting fit on the Cavs because the ceiling is really great, because they do need a small forward. Right now they're running like the Karis LeVert experiment, and I didn't love it when they were doing it, and then they re-signed him, and I'm still not a huge fan of it. But if that can hit to any extent, they look pretty dangerous because they have the guards, they have the bigs, the wings are the empty spot. I think they were pretty fortunate to grab him in the second round just as a flyer.
Yeah, with second rounders, I'm always just go grab like a freak, like just take someone who might like has a 0.00% chance of working out versus just like this safe, just like a safe non-dynamic guy at all. So I think it's fine for them. Hopefully it'll work out. They won the summer league, right? They won the championship.
Yeah, I think he was either MVP or was it Mobley's brother?
Yeah, Isaiah
Mm,
One.
Mobley.
Mm,
yeah, see,
yeah.
that's a ring. Now Denzel Valentine did that, but this is way different, I'm sure.
I was googling words that rhyme with Bates so that we could figure out the rebrand. And
Mm.
there's not like a great rebrand. There's like Imani hates, Imani Yates, Imani updates. We'll figure it out, but I don't think we could just simply rebrand the last name here.
Mm. Yeah, if we're talking nickname potential, I've been trying to come up with nicknames for every single player in the draft. I feel like with him you could lean into like a Norman Bates type thing because like being a killer on the court and whatever, but it's still workshopping. So
Hmm. All right. What about the inverse of my earlier question? Is there someone that you liked coming in, liked on your big board, and you're like, oh fuck, why did he have to get drafted here?
oh, yeah, so
Even
definitely. Oh yeah,
sorry, even if we expand on that, like factor in summer league as well. Like, is there anyone that based on where they ended up and then what you saw out of them in summer league that you're like, oh, maybe I was really wrong about this guy?
so so I'll say Amen Thompson for sure. Like I was like the Rockets is not the best landing spot for this guy. And I mean, is the draft before free agency? I forget the order,
Yeah.
or is it after? It's before free agency. So
Well, it's
even
before
before,
deals are signed, but like
did
we
we
know
know
everyone's
about Dylan
talking.
Brooks?
No.
Yeah. So even before that, I was kind of like, oof, I don't know if I love this fit. Um, and honestly, both Thompson twins I really like, and Asar Thompson, I really, really like him, and I think he's a very smart basketball player. And I really like Cade Cunningham, and I think he's a very smart basketball player. And I really like Jaden Ivey, but just the three of them together, I'm like, I don't know if this has the best synergy ever because it's like adding another non-shooter into the equation. And so those two guys, I was like, oh, it might be a little tough to bring out their potential. But as far as summer league goes, I put zero stock into summer league because I've been burned before. Like I said, we had the Denzel Valentine championship run. He made a buzzer beater to win the championship game, right? So it's like that has to mean something. It didn't mean anything. Trey Young was horrible in summer league, and then he put it together. Like if you go through the list, like a bunch of superstars were horrible in summer league. A bunch of nobodies were fantastic in summer league. Like I always say, good players play bad, good players play good, bad players play bad, bad players play good. So I'm just out on summer league. So as far as I'm concerned, they didn't play at all. They were just living it up at casinos for a month.
I mean, that's basically correct with Amin Thompson, who played, what was it, 3/4 of one game?
Yeah, he did look pretty sick though, but I can't get too
Hey,
excited.
he shot 100% on 3 pointers. That didn't reassure you of the shooting issues.
Oh my God! See that's how, do you guys remember Zion went like 4 for 4 in his debut, 3-point shooting, and then like James Wiseman made a bunch of threes for his like first month or whatever. I don't know what happens. Like they just show these little glimpses, and then it's like, oh, you tricked you. That's not real.
It's the adrenaline and the excitement there. You believe in it.
Yeah.
Well, all right. How about someone you don't believe in? Looking back, 2019, Sekou Doumbouya is drafted at 15th
Mm.
overall and is out of the league. The previous year, we've got number 16, Zaire Smith, out of the league. Going back a little bit further, we've got guys even higher who wash out of the league in their first 5 to 7 years. Who will be the highest draft pick in the next 5 to 7 years that's in Europe?
Oh man. Let's see. So the first name that comes to mind, he was picked at like 20 though, or whatever, is Cam Whitmore from Houston. A lot of people are very high on him. They feel like he has like sky high potential. but I feel like the baseline where he's at right now is very, very low. So I feel like he could. There's some potential that he doesn't stick. But like we already mentioned, Jaime Jaquez, there's some potential he doesn't stick. And yeah,
I
and
thought
then
the Cam Whitmore thing was really interesting because I saw him mocked super high, even up to the Rockets at 4. Like they got him later at 20, and I saw him at 4, and then to see you having him down to like 17, I thought was incredible. Given that the slide was like the big draft day story. It's like, what happened to Cam Whitmore? Like, did he kill someone yesterday? Like, where's like the gas mask bonk video that's taking his draft stock? But you just weren't as into it.
Yeah, when I put him at 17, you said 17, right? I have no memory where I had both these guys. But,
17.
So I had him at 17. I was like, I'm extremely low on this guy, and it turns out I'm higher on him than where he actually ended up going. But yeah, I think with him, there's like some injury concerns. Like I guess in the testing, something about him, I think they identified like a degenerative issue. So I think that scared some people away.
Apparently, like a terrible interview as well. Like
Mm.
teams talk to him and they're like, "Yeah, we're just going to take this guy off our board so that we don't even have to like think about him." Like even teams that were lower than where he was expected to go, which is part of the slide, is they're like, "We just don't want to have the discussion about whether we take this guy, so we're just going to not even have him on our board."
Yeah, like he didn't go out to dinner like James Wiseman and speak a little bit of Mandarin Chinese, so he couldn't wow these teams into taking him number 2.
I wanted to ask about the Thompson twins because they go back to back, but on your board you had Ahmed at 3 and Asar at 7. What was the difference? What's the big difference between those two?
Yeah, so Amen Thompson is an on-ball player. Like he's like the point guard type guy. Like you're putting the ball in his hands and you're like run a lot of our stuff. Asar Thompson is much more of an off-ball like wing type guy who's also a pretty good playmaker. But it's like the difference between like Luka versus Andre Iguodala type running offense, you know. And not to say Amen is going to be Luka, but or that he'll be Iguodala. But then, what's it called? The key differences are Amen is a more advanced passer. He's the more twitchy athlete. Like he's, even though they're twins, like he's a lot of people say Amen Thompson. A lot of the draft nerds, they say Amen Thompson's the best basketball athlete they've ever evaluated. They think like the world of his athleticism. Asar Thompson is like a fantastic athlete, but just not quite in the same tier. And then his finishing numbers were actually like pretty bad in the overtime elite. So I think there's a lot more work for him to do as a finisher, but he has more shooting potential. Like he has showed signs of life as a 3-point shooter versus Amen, who has shown like no signs of life. And so and then they're both fantastic defensively. I think Asar is considered the better on-ball defender. Amen is considered the better team defender, but that might flip-flop depending on who you talk to. But the main difference is the on-ball versus off-ball wing value. So
the Pistons didn't do bad.
No, they got a great player, but like fit can limit your ceiling. So we'll see. I'm hopeful.
Hey, I need good basketball in Detroit. It's tough going to watch. I mean, this is my local market, as close as I can be to a team. So like, I'd like to watch good basketball. That's just kind of my preference. Aaron, Dylan, do you guys have more draft questions? Otherwise, we've got non-sports questions from TikTok for Pablo. Or sports. They're kind of sportsy questions, but
kind of. I have nothing left. I
Let's-
was going to mention that. Go ahead.
Let's go one more quick question on Amin. What's his NBA position?
Offensively, I think he is your primary initiator, like your full-time initiator, bringing the ball up like a point guard. And then if he's off the ball, then he's just like, he can't really make an impact. So he's got to be like a big-time cutter. And then defensively, I feel like he's got a lot of versatility. Like he could be your point of attack defender. You could stick him on the other point guard. You could stick him on the other 2 guard, the other wing. Like he can do a lot. So yeah, I would define it that way.
All right. Well, then we'll stick. We'll get progressively less basketball as these questions go. But I put out the call on TikTok, just questions to ask you. And first, we'll go with what's your favorite obscure bench player?
Oh man, of all time. Oh well, how obscure are we going? You know what? I'll go Etwan Moore. He had some great years for the Bulls. There was like at one Oklahoma City Thunder game where we played the Thunder, where I think he made a game winner, and he just always he always felt like he was doing the right stuff. He always felt like he was playing good defense, making shots, doing the right thing. And so I'll go Etwan Moore. I would officially die for Etwan Moore.
Solid choice. Second, it either or Nets Iman Shumpert or Lakers J.R. Smith.
Are these things that happened?
Apparently. I mean, J.R. Smith is Laker. I remember that. I do not remember Nets Iman Shumpert.
When was J.R. Smith a Laker?
He won a championship.
Yeah, 2020.
Oh, he was on that team? Did he play?
Yeah.
Kinda.
He was a starting shooting guard for a long time.
Really? I have no memory. Oh, wait.
Shumpert didn't play for the Nets, though. But isn't that like the meme? It's like Shump plus the Nets pick could get you any superstar in the world.
Oh, yeah. I'll go Shump. I'll go Shump because of those Nets discussions, man. They could have had anybody.
All right. Apparently Smith was not a starter, but he did play in 10 playoff games.
Nice. Double digits.
Yeah.
I remember his daughter after the championship. She said so, like she was young and she said something like, "I'm so happy Dad like won a title without getting kicked off the team or something." Like managed to get Steve's not getting in trouble. And
all right. I think those are as close as basketball related as we're going to get. From one guest to the next guest, Jokic Yostar asks, Don Draper versus Walter White in one-on-one basketball. Who wins?
Oh, man. John Hamm is pretty tall, right?
That's what I felt like. Hamm, he's tall. He's a war vet in as Don Draper. He's athletic. I felt like this was an easy one.
And he works in like sale, and he's like trying to sell tobacco to people, right? So he's like ruthless, and Heisenberg is ruthless too, but it's like in a nerdy way. Like if you ever got him in a room, like you could beat him up or whatever. So for sure, Don Draper.
You don't think Heisenberg's got like that analytical approach to basketball?
Listen,
like he's not going into the mid range.
In 1v1, throw the analytics out. It's real hoopers. So no, it doesn't matter. It'll get stomped in the dust.
What if you give Walter?
And,
he's 5'11".
And John Draper, John Hamm's 6'1". 2-inch advantage.
Do they have wingspans for them?
I do not think they have celebrity wingspans.
What if you give Walter White Jesse? He gets his sidekick, and we'll give Don Draper Peggy.
Okay. Jesse for sure has played basketball.
Jesse's hooped.
But I don't think that helps. I feel like he would take every shot and he would miss every shot. He would probably have a disgusting looking jumper. And then he's the type of guy who like blames you when his shot doesn't go in. And so like the vibe, their vibes weren't great as a tandem. Like they got things done, but it wasn't the best. It was very much Michael Jordan type leadership. Don Draper's someone who inspires. So I'm taking Don Draper still.
Leadership. Yeah.
I also have not watched Mad Men.
What if he doesn't know about the 3-point line? I think that's late 40s, early 50s.
That's true. Do we get to tell him?
When was the jump shot invented?
Around that time. He might not know that you can jump and shoot at the same time.
Yeah, but he'll have those nasty push shots, I'm sure. Do we over under one jump shot that Walter White has taken in his life?
He's got a son.
Yeah.
He's a disabled son.
True.
I don't know if he's out on the court.
All right. We're gonna go with Don Draper. First instinct's the best instinct. All right. Final question from. Oh wait, no, we got two more. Or from the TikTok. Sports monocles? Question mark.
Yes. So, are you guys aware of my sports monocle propaganda?
No.
No.
So
I like it. I saw it in the Draymond video.
yes. So you've heard of the sports goggle, correct?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, a bunch of guys, they wore sports goggles. Can be a very cool, iconic look. Now, let's imagine. Now I'm in my Don Draper mode. Let's imagine Scoot Henderson comes into the NBA and he's like, Wemby's getting all the hype. I need to separate myself. Maybe I'll wear a sports monocle, just one. It won't be functional, but it's cool, no? And so I think somebody has to be the first to do it. Like somebody had to be the first to walk on the moon. Somebody had to be the first person to post the first Lena Dunham hate tweet. Like there's a lot of human innovations, and so somebody has to wear the sports monocle one day. So whoever does, you got billions coming to you in the bank.
See, I'm picturing like a almost like an eye patch where it's just the one, but then it's got the strap around and like the other strap down, or to like keep it functionally in place.
I did talk about like if someone had an eye patch too, that would be cool too, because they could put like a brand on it or something. Actually,
He's
that
the worst
probably wouldn't be
basketball player
allowed.
ever. Can't fucking see anything. His depth perception's off. This guy's not playing.
There's a player in NBA history whose name's escaping me right now, known as the Blind Bomber, and he would shoot based on the lines on the court because he couldn't see the rim, so you just had to memorize where like to fire from. It's like 50s basketball.
Yeah, he played in the 50s.
He's like a multi-time all-star.
You didn't have to jump to take your jump shots. Like you can sacrifice these things. I don't see the monocle being used in game, but what if like they were on like the bench and like reading the stat sheet in like a 1 second, like they pulled out, they put it on.
It's not enough. They have to poster Giannis while wearing the monocle, or it's not going to take off. It's got to be a revolution.
All right, final question. Potentially, I'm disappointed with the selection here, but potentially a hot topic. We've got barbecue Fritos versus Cool Ranch Doritos.
Oh, is that it? That's the two options?
That's the two options. I mean, at least give me like sweet chili Doritos.
I'm not a big chip guy, so unfortunately I'm gonna have to veto both of these. The one kind of chips I do like is what's it called? What are they? The like New Orleans brand. Do you guys know what I'm talking about or no? It's like voodoo chips. Is that what it is?
Oh yeah, I actually have seen those. I've had those before. They were good.
Yeah, those are pretty good. But outside of that, like my gas station runs, I'm a candy guy. Like I'm a mini M&M's, Reese's staple guy. Then you get some variation after that. But yeah, not a huge chips guy. How about you guys?
I mean, of these options, Cool Ranch Doritos, but like I'm not walking into a store and buying any of these anytime soon. These are not top fives.
I'm a salt and vinegar chip kind of guy. Like I like to ruin my mouth and stomach all at once.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Thank you, Tom.
I'm gonna demolish a bag of salt and vinegars right after this.
Well, Pablo, thanks for coming on. Where can people find you?
They can find me. Does it say? Yeah, it says it right there. I'm Pablo Escoball on TikTok. Please get me to Charlie D'Amelio, past Charlie D'Amelio and followers by next week, perhaps. And then I'm Hot Tunes TV China NBA on YouTube. There will be a Paolo Banchero video coming eventually. I'm pretty slow, so be in suspense. We'll see when it comes out. Who knows?
Aaron, where can the people find you?
Possible Chairs on TikTok and on this podcast every week.
Dylan, where can the people find you?
Exclusively on the Hoops Temple podcast, and tune in next week where I may wear a monocle.
Oh. You can also find me here at Hoops Temple podcast, also Hoops Temple Pod at TikTok. And if you like the show, want to have some questions, email us hoopstemple@gmail.com. Love to hear from y'all.